In the last video, I told you about my ayahuasca experience, which was the most intense and the most strange and most profound experience I've ever had. And at the end of that video, I said that I would tell you about what happened after the retreat, because that was almost just as strange as anything that happened during the retreat. So my intuition following on from the ayahuasca retreat just skyrocketed. And I never really was the kind of person to think that that kind of thing was even real, you know, that somebody could have higher intuition and kind of just know things about the situation or about other people. And, you know, I'm still not convinced that that is a thing, but I'm just going to tell you what I experienced. So I did seem to know things following on from the ayahuasca ceremonies. The first example is that there was a guy there at the retreat called Andrew, and after I'd left and I was back in Iquitos in the hotel, he just sent me a message asking how my final ceremony went, because he had left the retreat center before I did. And I replied saying, yeah, it was great. Kind of told him some of the details of what happened that I told you about last time. And then I just had to ask him the question, because I felt like Andrew wasn't his name. I said, I know this might sound like a really strange question, but do you feel connected to your name? Do you feel like that should be your name, or do you feel like you should be called something else? Knowing that that was a crazy question. But what he came back with surprised me. He said that the name he grew up with wasn't the name that we came to know him as. And actually at birth, his parents gave him two names, and he was always called his other name, not Andrew. And then later in life, somebody in his family started calling him his other name, Andrew, and it stuck. But he said that he never felt connected to either of those two names. And to add even more to it, he said that when he was in the hospital, when he was born, they wrote the wrong name on the birth certificate. So they didn't write Andrew, they wrote Andre, which meant that technically Andrew wasn't his name, and he never felt connected to either of those names either. The next example was I was in Iquitos in the hotel, and I was having a video call with a couple of my friends from back home, and I suddenly got the sense that my friend's mum was not well. And I said to him, how's your mum? Like, is she okay? And he said, well, actually, no, she has been taken ill, and they were very worried about her. And I was just like, you and your sister just need to let your mum know how much you love her, and she'll get better. Now, before I left Peru, I went to the home of this woman called Diana, who is this amazing, enlightened woman. And what she does is that she helps people to integrate their ayahuasca experience going back into their normal lives. So I had a coca ceremony with her, which was just me and her sat in a room, chewing coca leaves and talking. And we talked for hours and hours and hours. And right at the beginning, she lit a candle in front of both of us and said, when you're done, when you've talked about everything that you need to talk about, your candle will go out. And so we did, and we just talked about the experience. We talked about my life back home. And during that, I said, after everything that I've just experienced, I feel like I can't go back to my job. How can I go back to a job that is not important or doesn't give me a sense of purpose in life? And what Diana said to me was that I won't have to do that job anymore. And either something else will come up, or my current job will sack me. Some way I will be out of that job. It is essentially already over. So remember that. I'll come back to it. Then heading out of Peru, I was on a flight from Iquitos back to Lima, and I was sat on the plane next to uh, this woman who didn't speak much English. I don't speak much Spanish, so we were conversing the best that we could using broken English and broken Spanish and some made up sign language. And it was actually quite an enjoyable conversation, even though we didn't speak each other's languages. And then I imagined what it would be like, for some reason, if we had extreme turbulence, or we came into some kind of trouble. But I just had the strong sense that even if that were to happen, we would be fine, because there's no way that I could have just gone through that entire experience that I just had for it all to end right now. It felt like I was going back with a purpose. And then we had the most crazy turbulence I've ever experienced, to the point where the woman sat next to me screamed and grabbed hold of my hand, which shows you how scary it must have been, because you're not going to grab the hand of some stranger on a plane, are you? Um, but even in that moment, I knew for certain that we were going to be fine. And I just looked at the woman next to me, and I smiled and I said, "It's okay. Don't worry. We're going to be okay." And she calmed down because of the calm that I was putting out there, I suppose. Now, when I got back home, I still had one more week off work, because it was the final week before I had an assignment due for. I was doing my master's degree in mindfulness studies at the time, and I had an assignment on the connection between compassion and mindfulness. So I had one week of just writing and reading about mindfulness and compassion, and meditating and writing and meditating and writing. And it felt like the perfect week to follow the ayahuasca experience. And at one point when I was meditating, the Buddhist mantra Om Mani Padme Hum came into my mind. But at the time, I didn't know that that was a Buddhist mantra. I didn't really know what it was. I thought that maybe I'd heard it at some point during the retreat. Maybe somebody was saying those words, or maybe somebody was playing music while I was there, um, that had that chant in it. But I wasn't sure what it was. It just came into my mind, and I was like, "What is that? What is Om Mani Padme Hum?" And then I googled it, and it turned out that that is a mantra dedicated to the bodhisattva of infinite compassion. And when I read that, I was just in shock. I was like, that is crazy that I'm currently, writing and reading and meditating on compassion, and then the mantra dedicated to the bodhisattva of infinite compassion comes into my mind. Um, and I very possibly did hear it at the retreat, and that's why it was fresh in my mind or something. I couldn't place when I'd heard it or anything. I didn't really know why it come into my mind, but all the same, I thought that was pretty crazy. Now, the next part, the week ended, I submitted my assignment, and work began again on the Monday morning. And I was, working away, kind of feeling like, what's going on here? I'm not supposed to be working in this job anymore. And at the end of the day, I went for a walk around the lake that was next to my house, and I just felt very down. And I was just thinking, what is this? Why am I still working in this job? And then the very next day, I got a call from the founder of the animal sanctuary that I'd been volunteering at. And a few weeks prior to this, I'd written a marketing plan just to help them out, and the founder of the sanctuary said to me, uh, we're still looking for somebody to enact the plan that you put together. And she offered me the position. And I was like, here you go, this is it. So, of course, I accepted that role, and I quit my job, and I went to work at the animal sanctuary. I didn't stay there long term in the end, but I spent the entire summer there and a bit longer after that. And it was a great experience. But Diana was right. I didn't have to continue in the job that I felt wasn't bringing me a purpose in life. And now one last thing. So me and my brother had booked this campsite. It was like a private campsite for a bunch of our friends to go and stay there. And we were getting closer to the time. This was maybe several weeks or months even after the retreat. We were getting close to the time, and then some of our friends couldn't make it anymore. And we were like, well, this is not really worth, hiring the whole campsite when there's not going to be that many of us anymore. So I suggested to my brother, let's do a meditation retreat. And my brother thought I was joking at first. I was like, no, let's do this. Like we can do this. Let's host a meditation retreat. And at the time we were working with Medito, the meditation app. So we did the first ever Medito mindfulness retreat. And it was amazing. And people came from all over the country, even they flew in from different countries to come to this retreat at this campsite that we booked. Originally, it was going to be just for our friends, and then we turned it into something that was really special. And then at one point, so I was giving talks and guiding meditations as part of the retreat. And at one point, I just finished giving a talk, and then I was guiding the meditation, and I was in this very meditative state, and the image of that third ceremony came into my mind. As if you watch the last video, there was a point where it was like I was talking to people who were sat around me, but they obviously weren't really there. And I was telling them about these insights that were coming to me. And it felt like this retreat was a direct continuation of that. Except now, instead of there being these imaginary people sat around me that I was talking to, they were real people. And in this moment, during like the guided meditation, it just felt like I was still in that ayahuasca experience. That these several months later down the line, it was just a continuation of that. And in a way, like everything since that retreat has been, in a very literal way, just a continuation of that experience. In the sense that life goes on, life continues. We have experiences. The experiences are different. The contents of our consciousness changes, but underlying all of that, there is just one thing, and that one thing never changes. If you haven't seen that original video where I talked through the whole experience, then I'll link that up here. If you have seen that and you want to dive more into the underlying shared consciousness that we all have, then I'll link another video down here.